Blackthorn Canyon swallowed sound the way it swallowed light, slowly, hungrily, as if determined to keep every secret whispered into its stone. Royce Callahan had learned long ago to read the canyon's silences. So when he heard a single ragged breath drifting through the heat, thin as a dying ember, he stopped. At first, he expected a wounded animal. But as he edged along a narrow rock shelf, he saw the truth, a young Apache woman pinned beneath a fallen slab of stone, her lashes dusted with grit, her skin flushed from sun and struggle. Her breathing was shallow, as though her body had already begun choosing between fight and surrender. When his shadow crossed her face, she lifted her head with the last of her strength. Her gaze, dark, sharp, unyielding, cut straight through him. "Make it quick," she whispered, lips cracked, voice steady as a blade. "I won't scream." The words hollowed him. Not with shock, but with the terrible understanding of what life must have taught her. Royce knelt, hands gripping the edge of the slab. "I'm not here to hurt you." The canyon held its breath as if waiting to see whether either of them dared believe it. Blackthorn Canyon carved itself into the Arizona territory like a scar the earth refused to hide. Heat shimmered in rippling sheets. Juniper scented the wind. The canyon hummed a low, constant note, the kind that settled into a man's bones if he lived alone long enough. Royce Callahan had done exactly that. Years of solitude had shaped him into something quiet, careful, and difficult to read. His cabin sat on the canyon's south rim, a squat structure of weathered pine built for survival, not comfort. Smoke from his morning fire drifted upward like it too questioned whether humans belonged here. When he lifted the rock from the woman and carried her across the canyon floor, her weight settled against him with the rigid tension of someone who trusted nothing, not even being rescued. Her silence was not fear. It was calculation. Inside the cabin, he laid her on a pallet near the hearth. Firelight brushed across her dirt-smudged cheekbones. She was young, but not untouched by loss. Her hair, black as obsidian dust, clung to her temples. Her wrists bore small cuts from scrambling across jagged rock. She watched him with wary, unblinking eyes. Royce recognized that look. He had worn the same expression the day he walked away from his army regiment, turning his back on commands he could no longer obey. A pale scar on his left wrist, catching the firelight, hinted at the price of that choice. He turned his hand instinctively to hide it. Every sound in the small cabin seemed amplified, the crackle of fire, the shift of her breath, the scrape of his boots as he fetched water. He handed her a tin cup, careful to keep distance. She drank slowly, and though exhaustion trembled along her fingers, her shoulders eased a fraction. "My name is Royce Callahan," he said, unsure why he offered it. She acknowledged him with a brief glance but remained silent. Names were dangerous for people who had been hunted. Outside, Ironwood Bluff lay 5 miles east, a town where suspicion moved faster than truth. If word spread that an Apache woman was alive near its borders, trouble would rise like dust in a dry wind. When she finally spoke, her voice was rough but unwavering. "I don't need your comfort." "I'm not offering comfort," he replied. "Just a place to breathe." Her gaze flickered, unreadable. Night came slow, like a smolder. The cabin dimmed as Tenaya, he would learn her name later, sat half upright against the wall, her injured leg wrapped in cloth, her hair falling loose in a wild shadow around her face. She watched Royce the way a mountain cat might watch a trap, aware of every twitch, every shift in the air. He moved quietly, lighting a lantern whose glow softened the hard planes of his face. For a moment, she studied him, his rigid shoulders, the tired stillness in his eyes, the silence he seemed to carry like a second skin. "Drink more," he said, setting another cup beside her. She hesitated just long enough to show she was measuring him again. The canyon had taught her that hesitation could save or kill. "You'll walk again," he said when he saw her testing her leg. "You know nothing about me." "Enough," he replied. "Enough to see you fight harder than most men I knew." Her breath hitched, not quite disbelief, not quite acceptance. Wind wailed down the chimney. The sound dragged her somewhere far worse than the canyon. Horses screaming. Fire crackling across roof beams. Her mother's voice swallowed by rifle shots. She jerked upright. Royce stepped forward a fraction, then stopped, unsure whether closeness would hurt or help. "It's just the wind," he said softly. "Wind carries memory," she whispered. He didn't question her. Questions often wounded more than answers. Instead, he sat near the fire, close enough that she wasn't alone, far enough she didn't feel trapped. For the first time, silence between them felt like a bridge, not a wall. "You could have left me there," she said. "Should I have?" "Most men would have." "I'm not most men." A truth, not a boast. Something shifted then, small, quiet, unmistakable. By morning, thin light slipped through the cabin, dust drifting like slow-moving stars. Royce brewed coffee. Tenaya pushed herself upright without flinching from his presence, a small victory he didn't dare acknowledge out loud. She ate cautiously, as though unsure if kindness was safe to swallow. Outside, a lone hawk circled overhead. Royce stepped onto the porch, scanning the horizon. He'd seen the tracks last night, boot prints too deliberate to belong to ranchers. "He's close," Tenaya said when he returned. "You know who's tracking you?" "Hale Thatcher," she murmured. The name felt like a closing grave. Later, when she stepped into the sunlight for the first time since the canyon, her gaze swept the cliffs with instinctive precision. "I should leave," she said. "If I stay, he'll come for you too." He already did. Royce lifted his sleeve, revealing a fresh graze. "Last night." Guilt flashed across her features before settling into determined calm. She gathered desert herbs, yarrow, sage, tiny white blossoms whose Apache names fell from her tongue like memory. When she touched his arm to apply her mixture, he flinched, not from pain, but from unexpected closeness. She waited. He extended his arm. "You saved my life," he said quietly. "You saved mine first." No sentiment. Only truth. By afternoon, Royce led Midnight, the black horse, out of the corral. "You need to ride," he said. "If you have to run, you'll need more than speed." Midnight snorted, lowering his head when Tenaya approached. She whispered to him in her language. Royce couldn't understand the word, but he felt it like warmth settling through the air. He lifted her onto the saddle, careful not to touch more than necessary. As he guided the horse, her movements were steady, instinctive. They rode beneath cottonwoods where the wind carried hints of distant rain. When Midnight stumbled, she grabbed the saddle horn. Royce's hand shot out, brushing her knee. They froze for one heartbeat, long enough for the moment to spark between them like static in dry grass. "You're a natural," he said, clearing his throat. A faint smile touched her lips. Dusk thickened. Coyotes called across the canyon. A small fire glowed between them as she hummed an Apache melody, ancient, strong, soft enough to settle into the bones. For the first time, she caught him listening. She didn't look away. Ironwood Bluff woke to fear the morning Hale Thatcher rode in. Dust coated his coat, blood crusted his cheek, and the coldness in his eyes made townsfolk step aside without a word. He told Sheriff Warren Pike that he hunted an Apache survivor, a dangerous fugitive, in his telling. By noon, rumors swarmed. Royce buying extra supplies. Smoke rising from the canyon. A muttered claim that he had once sided with savages. Fear sharpened into something harder. At sunset, Pike rode to Royce's cabin, shoulders sagging beneath the weight of what approached. "They're coming," Pike warned. "I'll stall them, but they won't wait long." After he left, Tanya stood beside Royce, the sky burning orange behind them. "You should let me go," she whispered. "If I stay, they'll come for you. I won't hand you over. Not to Thatcher. Not to anyone." Night deepened. Hoofbeats thundered in the distance, this time without caution. Lanterns bobbed like angry fireflies as the townsmen approached. Royce stepped forward. Tenaya stood behind him, fingers trembling. Not from fear, but from memory. When the men reached the clearing, dust swirling around them, Royce braced himself. The true battle was only beginning.